tonight. It's May the 28th, 2019.
Call the order the May 28th, 2019 Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sam, take the roll, please.
Supervisor O'Donnell. Here. Supervisor Bianconi.
Present.
Supervisor Casas.
Here.
Supervisor Spees. Here. Supervisor Anderson.
Here.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight on this tornado warning night. Wanted to start off with two announcements. First is going to be the appreciation of the students at Rifton School. Mr. Bianconi, since you were heavily involved with this project, give an update and talk about this. And I know Lori too was also instrumental.
Yeah, Lori and I were fortunate to go visit the schools at the Rifton and work with Mr. DeWall and Divler. They did a collaboration of what the kids view of what they perceive of what Perkins could be. And what was really great about this is it wasn't just like one group of kids working on a project. It was like they would start it and the next group would take over right where they left off. So it was really cool, and some of the ideas. So if you get a chance before you head out, I think it's still in the foyer yet. They have, they brought over the whole display that was up there, and so everybody can kind of see it. It's really neat, and it was really cool to see the imagination of the kids. So, all right.
Second thing I want to talk about is the, as you can see on the board here, we're continuing our communication collaboration train. So people that are new here, there's some of you that are new here, just to read that. New here, welcome. Just remember, this is our normal meeting of the Board of Supervisors. It's not a Q&A, it's not a town hall. We do have some exciting town halls coming in the next several months. So there are some rules here that we want to put in place to make sure the meeting runs smoothly. I know a lot of people don't know this, but this used to be on the desk here in front. We're going to move that to the middle there so no one's intimidated. People can come sign in. It's going to be there. You don't have to come to the desk to sign in. You always have to sign in. Always please give your physical address, physical Exeter Township address, no P.O. boxes. Know your topic. If you're here to talk about a specific topic, we'll do that first. If you're here to talk about something general, we'll do that at the end of the meeting. Keep your comments to 3 minutes. Keep it short. Again, there's 30 minutes total that we allot for public comments. Keep it civil. Make sure that, no disruption, nothing profane, nothing aggressive, nothing racist, Mr. Hughes. Keep it quiet. We want to hear you. We want to have good public comment. Be respectful to those speaking. Our mics are good, but they're not that good, so keep that in mind. And keep it moving. Once you're done talking, you could go and sit down. So that's kind of like the rules. So we just wanted to make it more of an open meeting, as we have the last several months, and we're excited at the way things are going and the way that the meetings have been conducted. They've been very positive, very good from a lot of our folks out there that are helping out with Reading Country Club. So I just wanted to thank everyone and understand those policies, and we're going to keep them up there so that people understand the questions and comments. So next topic is agenda items.
Excuse me, I want to address your accusation.
At the end of the comments, we'll do it, Mr. Hughes.
I am no more racist than you are a pedophile.
Karen Morgan.
Just so you know that.
Karen Morgan, fireworks.
Do I talk from
Yeah,
here?
no, you have to go up there to the.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And no disruptions during the meeting, Mr. Hughes, or you're gone.
Thanks for the warning.
You're welcome.
I wanted to talk about fireworks.
Name and address, please.
Karen Morgan, 4411 Mays Avenue. This week we had to listen to fireworks in Jackson Meadows. Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday. Monday they went from 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They started with the M80s and the rockets, and they went until about 10:15. Non-professional people were shooting these off. The chrysanthemum. I used to help run fireworks shows in an amusement park, and we knew that if it was high humidity, the chrysanthemum would not be launched because they couldn't get enough loft. They couldn't get high enough up in the air. So in Exeter Township, we can't have open fires, we can't burn leaves, but it's okay to sprinkle ashes from fireworks on our neighbors' houses. Where I live, it's a small community, little houses close together. Saturday night, as I sat outside, there were 6 different groups shooting off fireworks. They were above me, all around me, above the roofs, above the swimming pools, above people's patios. It's just not safe. Wednesday, we also had, I think it was an inmate thrown from a silver Civic in our neighborhood, because you heard the boom and then the car speed off. So with this stuff being available, there needs to be some rules and some regulations. You know, I can buy leaf burning trash containers in this place, in this township, but I'm not allowed to use it because there's rules for everybody's safety, so I don't catch my lawn on fire and spread it to everybody's house. The noise is just unbearable. I can't relax because my dog is like incredibly neurotic. I like drug her to the point of nearly killing her at times because she will bark for 2 hours after these fireworks. So when they start at 5 and go till 10:15, she's barking till 11 or midnight. It's ridiculous. My neighbors shouldn't have to listen to my dog bark. We shouldn't have to listen to the racket and have the fire danger. It's $8,000 for me to replace my roof last year, and I have fireworks going off above my roof. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Later or now? You just do it later. Okay.
Next, Mr. Walker, RCC.
Tom Walker.
Name and address, Mr.
Thank
Walker.
you. Tom Walker, 5008 Stony Run Drive. Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank and acknowledge the work of our volunteer landscapers at Reading Country Club. I encourage everybody to go over and see what they're doing. It's gorgeous. While you're there, go into the golf shop. Sitting on the counter is a canister for donations. Every little bit helps. 2 of them are sitting here. I won't embarrass them by telling you who they are, but we know who they are.
They do.
So thank you.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
Great job.
There are more than these 2 ladies. What they are doing is very important for many reasons. I'll give you just one. On May 31st, 2018, the National Park Service listed Reading Country Club on the National Register of Historic Places. It's listed for 2 reasons, for the clubhouse and for the golf course. The clubhouse was designed by Harry Maurer, who was a Reading-based architect. He was also the 1925 club champion. He was a very excellent architect. He also designed the Yingling Mansion in Pottsville, which itself is on the National Register. The golf course was designed by Alex Finley. He came to the United States in 1885. In his native Scotland, he was a champion golfer. He came to the US, there were no golf courses. So he made it his life's work to introduce the game and promote the game in the United States. By 1922, he was being referred to as the father of golf in America. He built and designed more than 200 golf courses. His effect in Berks County was profound. In addition to Reading, he designed the original 9 holes at Galen Hall in 1911. He designed Manor Golf Club. He designed the now defunct Riverside Golf Club in Muhlenberg Township, and he consulted in the design in Berkshire Country Club. Now, what may be of interest to the supervisors and the administration is, as a National Register property, there are grant money is available. You can find out about it on the Pennsylvania State Historic Commission website. Achieving this designation costs the township nothing. No tax dollars were spent. All of the research, the photography, writing of the application, and liaison with the State Historical Commission was done by a township resident. This is something in which all township residents should take pride, because after all, we the people own Reading Country Club. Thank you.
Mr. Walker, you're getting me an article.
Yes, sir.
I just owe you the word count.
Thank you, John.
Yep, thank you, sir. And a great job. It's a great sense of community, the fact that people were out there, and I know a lot of them there. I know Dave's wife and the other 2 folks that don't want to be mentioned sometimes did a phenomenal job, great sense of community. It just shows that people can go out there and do something nice instead of the other thing that people do. So really proud the way of the group, and I wish other people would get more involved instead of just talking about it on social media. Next, Ms. Kirschner. We're going to talk about PC, purchase of the Promenade Center.
first item I'd like to talk about is the reduction of planning
Name and
commission.
address.
Michelle Kircher, 1101 Stonehenge Drive.
Thank you.
The first item I'd like to talk about is a reduction of the size of the planning commission. I was at the last planning commission meeting, and you definitely do not need to reduce the size of it. I think that you need more members. I think that there needs to be a lot more training of the members there. The more people that you have to give some input into it and get more residents involved, I think you're gonna have better outcome as far as the plans that come through. I don't know why anyone would think of reducing the size of the planning commission when you want to try and get the input of the residents, not close the residents out as something that's gonna affect them in the area, especially when they live there. I've never heard of any other place reducing the size of the planning commission. If you want transparency and you want people to know about what's going on in the township, you definitely want to have an open planning commission. The more recommendations you can get, the better off your plan is going to end up being. That's the first thing. The second one I'd like to discuss under new business is 5, the resolution authorizing the execution of the agreement to purchase a Pomerade shopping center. I brought up objections before about this. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I don't think you've done enough planning on this. I think that the residents of this township have the right to know what their money's being spent on, what it's gonna cost for the final build out, what the build out is gonna totally incur. I don't think that we should jump blind into this. PennDOT has done a lot of investing in improving that road. We have no idea what size anything is. We have no idea what everything is going on up there. You talk about the cross-town connector, we'll just put that in. I don't think you have any idea what that's gonna cost, and that it's gonna also involve eminent domain taking over people's houses and property. Would also involve the school district in St. Lawrence. So I think that we are entitled to know what you're gonna do with our money. It's the taxpayers' money, before you jump into something and just decide you're gonna buy it. I'm talking, please. You want us to obey these rules, I think you owe us the respect to also obey them yourself for us. You have to remember, we are the taxpayers, and I'm not trying to be smart. I just think, since we're so limited to what we're allowed to say here and do, that we're entitled to have this time to speak. There's a lot of concern out there. All we want is a true story before you step ahead. And right now, I guess I'm not allowed to comment on anything after you comment on it.
Yeah, we'll do that at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations on your election and victory too.
Thank you.
Pat Vlasic.
Hi, good evening. Pat Vlasak, 211 Rugby Road. And I'll try to limit my Italianism to 3 minutes. Okay. My main reason is to give an update or progress report on the work that we have been doing at the country club regarding the landscaping and all that good stuff. And so I have my notes. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 volunteers working since May 14th to the 26th. Our newest member is Jeff, for which we had him really hustling and throwing lots of mulch.
That's the most work I've done in years.
But you enjoy it,
I
right?
did, I really did. I worked there before, and it took me back to when I was 19. It was awesome, actually.
That's good.
Wow,
You're
you
getting a
feel
good
that way.
tan too. I'm happy to say, in terms of volunteers that we've received an outreach by a couple that right now they're away, but I'm waiting for them to return. And Margaret and Michael Sidor, we've received a communication from them, and they're anxiously awaiting to help us out. And by the way, we can use any help that's out there that you would like to do. We can find any kind of work for you to do. We have lots of stuff going on. Okay, anyway, we have received, without getting into amounts, we have received plant donations from Lowe's, Home Depot, some private individuals, and including Janet Hurlbrink, who's not here tonight, she's away. But the biggest one, and I really would like to push and is Glick's. Glick's Greenhouse Nursery has been tremendous. They, I mean, they're supporting us, they're doing a lot. Without a lot of the plants that they gave us, we wouldn't be as far along as we were. Not saying that Lowe's and Home Depot weren't helpful either, but my goodness, they're asking us to even go back for more. So, of course, we didn't say no. Okay, and so, so aside from the plants, we do have a jar, as Tom mentioned, in the pro shop over at the country club, where we do accept some monetary donations. And also, aside from that, and we've been pleased, but any more, it's very helpful. We're planning on letting this be a long time and continuing project, ongoing project. There's always be something to do. Aside from that, we've received $106 anonymous from some private individuals who would like to remain anonymous. And for that, we're very, very happy also. And, okay, and so that's about it. If there's, just let me make one or two other comments here. If anybody would like to help and they can't do any work physically, we're also looking for people that would like to, that are in the process or want to divide and separate their multitude of plants that they have in their garden. And if they would like to contact us, we'd be happy to give them a call. We'd be happy to help them do it, or we could work out a way to go pick them up, or they could also be dropped off at the pro shop to Derek. And if someone could please put my email address in the minutes, that somebody could contact me through email, and I'd just put something about plants or RCC. And last but not least, the people, the employees over at the country club have been tremendous. Brian loves us that we're helping him connect or touch base with some projects that he's wanted to do but hadn't been able to. He almost felt like kind of embarrassed that someone else was doing it, but we love it, okay? And his crew, they're wonderful. They guide us. We ask for his input on certain projects so we don't goof anything up. And also Derek and the other people, Sandy and Don and Gabe, everybody there at the pro shop. Yeah, I know. Okay, thank you very much.
I think great job. It's a great community. It's what we should be doing as a community. We're going to include this in the meeting. Your report's going to be not part of this every week that we talk about.
Yeah, I hope so, because like I said, we're
going to actually include this in the manager's report so that, and if there's any questions, of course, we could ask you at the meeting.
Oh, of course.
This way,
Thank you.
So your time there. Great job.
And anybody else who wants to help, thank you.
Mr. Fritz about AirBNB.
Excuse me. Did I do okay?
Keith Fritz, 40 Stephanie Road. Do we have a definition for what Airbnb is?
We're gonna be talking about, essentially, first item of business is gonna be oral business.
Okay. I have an Airbnb directly across the street from me. And it's more of a boarding house. I mean, to me, Airbnb has been kind of a rent a house or rent a room. There's 5 rooms. We have cars that are parked on the street, which I've tried to work with the police department, and I have gotten nowhere. There are no parking signs up and down our street because the streets are so narrow that 2 cars, 1 car goes through, that's it. But I was informed by the police department that they don't ticket or don't enforce no parking. That's what I was told. So I'm really interested in what is the definition that you hold as Airbnb. I lived in Portland, Maine for 9 years. And that's a pretty heavily tourist area. There are several communities that have banned it outright. South Portland being one of them. Scarborough being another. So that's my interest in Airbnb. But I'd like to mention one thing about the fireworks. I have experience in exactly what she was saying. Everybody's familiar with the West Reading fireworks that I don't even know if they still go on. But years ago when my son was, I think he was 2.5 years old, we decided with another couple to go to the West Reading fireworks show. It was one of those stinking hot, humid nights in Berks County. We placed our blanket on the ground and we awaited the fireworks, and the fireworks started. And the fireworks had a tremendous difficult time getting up into the air because of the humidity. Well, to make a long story short, one went up and one came down. Coming down, I dove and laid on my son. My shirt started on fire. My son's leg was burned. They had to stop the fireworks that evening. The ambulance came over, treated my son. They wanted to take him to the hospital. There was no need to do that. But these things can really be dangerous. So I just wanted to support what she said about the fireworks, because if you don't know what you're doing and you're spraying all over town and where homes are and where brush is, bad things can happen. But please, I want to know what the
Yeah, we're talking about
definition
Airbnb and fireworks tonight, so perfect timing. Thank you for your comments. Next, regular approvals, minutes, April 8th. At the end, public comments, we'll get to you.
Well, also I want to talk about.
No, we'll talk at the end. There is a public comment at the end, sir. Let's go to regular approvals, minutes, April 8th, 2019. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, April 22nd minutes.
Make a motion to approve the April 22nd minutes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, the special meeting, April 24th. This was the interviews that we did for the supervisors' positions. There was a change on this one.
Yeah, the actual meeting, need an amendment to change, it was a 6:30 start to the meeting.
The meeting started at 6:30 versus 7. That was the one change. Right.
So make a motion to
Subject to the amendment.
make a motion to approve the April 24th meeting, subject to change up the start time to 6:30.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, approve the minutes for the May 6, 2019. This was the second special meeting with the interviews for the supervisor.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Second what I need.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, approve minutes for May 13, 2019.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of May 13th with an amendment to change that Sam Cortez was not present at that meeting.
It was not there.
It needs to be changed to
Alicia
Alicia.
was there in my stay, yeah.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item, Treasurer's Report, April 2019.
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's report subject to audit.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, disbursements.
Make a motion to approve the disbursements.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, old business, discussion on regulations pertaining to AirBNB.
Okay, I'm gonna ask my colleague Alicia Luke, who was here last time, to come to the microphone also to help with this. But so we periodically have had some discussion regarding Airbnbs here, and we were directed to monitor a case called the Slice of Life case that went up to the Supreme Court, and the decision came down on that about a month ago, and the decision overturned a couple of Commonwealth Court, middle-level court cases that previously had stricken down municipalities' authorities, or municipalities' attempts to regulate or rid themselves of essentially Airbnbs. And what the Supreme Court said in the Slice of Life case, and you tell me if I got it wrong, is essentially that just because the township doesn't necessarily specifically, or municipality specifically exclude something, doesn't necessarily mean that it's automatically permitted. So they're right now, the facts of that case, the Slice of Life case, and I'd be curious to hear more about your situation, involved an Airbnb that was, or if you want to call it, they call it transit housing, is basically what they call it. Something that was purely transient. So it was a home that had no permanent resident in it living within it whatsoever. It was 24/7 rented or vacant, awaiting the next customer to arrive. Court didn't answer the question of what would be the tougher question of what about if somebody does live there for some period of time, what in that circumstance? I think, I'll let Alicia address what the options would be with respect to that, but I think under the Slice of Life case and how it interprets the zoning law and the definition of our zoning ordinance, right now, the administrator would have the authority to preclude any purely transient use. So if there is an Airbnb that is used solely for transient purposes or Airbnb purposes, and then no one lives there even part-time regularly, the way our ordinance is written, we could stop that use. And I'll let Alicia talk about if that's and if we'd have to be able to know, I don't know. This is the only way we find out is really when people like you come forward and say that, we've got one across the street or something like that. Yeah.
People live there.
Okay.
Okay, five bedrooms every night.
Right.
Cars, they live there. In an area that's not, it's not an area that's been, has a variance for business purpose.
Okay, and I'll let Alicia address what you're in the situation that she's about to address.
Yeah, so as Sam mentioned, and to kind of echo it, the Slice of Life decision very clearly, it's very fact specific, but again, the property was owned by an LLC, it was up in Poconos, and people that came to use it were only coming to use it for recreational purposes. The the definition in the ordinance at issue in that case of family tracks very closely the township's definition of family, such that I think it's very clear our ordinance as written does prohibit purely transient use of properties. The stickier issue, which Sam alluded to, is that the case doesn't address whether single housekeeping unit, which is how our ordinance defines family in part, prohibits partial transients. So that's the issue that's raised there. Our ordinance, as it's drafted, it doesn't include definitions for terms like boarding rooms, which sounds like a similar situation that you have, or lodging houses. So one of the options that would be available would be to specifically define those terms. To address your question earlier about how we define Airbnb, I don't think we want to define Airbnb because there's a lot of different ways you can do home away, VRBO. There's a lot of different short-term rental companies. So I think that if the township wants to impose some sort of limitations on partial transients, you're going to want to use a broad term like that, short-term rental or something like that. And then the other issue that needs to be considered is if it's someone's primary residence, but they go to the shore for a month or two, or they're away for a weekend or two, how would we want to try to craft an ordinance, if we want to, that would address those types of issues?
And just to add on to that, I circulated, back when this issue I think first came up, a memo I was asked, and I know the board is we have a different composition now, so I'm happy to recirculate it, that gave some suggestions and some sample ordinances of what other folks have done around the Commonwealth on this issue. Usually the definition is short-term rentals. That's the way the term is often defined. So we can do that, and there are options, but we would need some direction from the board as to what Alicia's getting at there, which is, do you want to wholesale preclude it from residential, the residential districts, keeping in mind that you can't zone out a use in its entirety from every single zoning district, but do you want to wholesale exclude it from the residential districts, or do you want to do what some municipalities have done, which is what Alicia's alluding to, allow a limited short-term use as opposed to what he's experiencing, which is, sounds like the regular constant use.
Yeah, the courts recognize that purposes of residential areas is to really foster a sense of community, and that's kind of incongruous with transients. So 1 weekend a month or something like that might not necessarily be incongruous with a community atmosphere, but a situation where a corporation owns a property and the owners have never lived there for a day, it's the total opposite. And then in the middle is kind of a gray area that the board needs to figure out where they want to go with it.
So we can circulate the memo, or you can also give us some suggestions, or maybe you want to look at it first and we can talk about it at the next meeting. That's up to you guys.
That's what I think we should do. I think the limited use is what I like, but I think we should study it a little more and then bring it up at our next meeting. Because there's new members on the board that should probably be privy to that.
Then I will tomorrow morning circulate the memo that we did with the large file, because it had several attachments. And if you have any questions or if there's an issue with it coming through, just let me know.
Thank you.
She's going to stay there because she's tough.
Next, discussion on proposed amendments to the fireworks ordinance.
All right, so I think this is my third or fourth time before the board talking about the fireworks law. So just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, if you are new or you don't remember me talking about this before, Pennsylvania substantially changed their fireworks law fairly recently, which precluded the township from being able to just prohibit fireworks as broadly as they had done before. Unfortunately, the township's not allowed to do that, because if it did that, it would be conflicting with state law, and township laws can't be overriding state laws. But what we did talk about doing was, we had already amended the ordinance to be compliant with state law, but we also proposed some further additional amendments. And the purpose of those is to, first of all, track the language of the law to the extent it puts some restrictions on what's called consumer fireworks, which are like the non-professional fireworks. Again, the township can't prohibit their use. It's not possible, but we can put more explicitly in the ordinance the restrictions. So you can't shoot an M80 off out of your car, right? That's in the act. it's prohibited, it's not something that can be done. It's unfortunately sometimes difficult to enforce, but it's something that we tracked to be in the amended ordinance. We also put some use and time restrictions, limiting it to an hour of duration for any kind of cumulative display at a particular property. We also explained further for the, it was already in the prior ordinance that we amended, but we reinforced it that for both display fireworks, which are professional, and consumer fireworks, which are, you know, the more amateur ones, the fire marshal or the fire marshal's designee has the ability, in the case of adverse weather conditions, high wind, very dry conditions, to suspend the use of those fireworks because it becomes a public safety issue in those situations.
Can you explain the permitting requirements too?
Yeah, so permits are required in order to put off display fireworks, which again are the more substantial professional grade fireworks, as that term is defined in the legislation. We require the permits to be in at least 14 days in advance. There's certain bonding and insurance requirements that the person putting forth the display needs to establish in order to ensure that they're adequately insured. And again, this needs to be something that the township officially grants a permit for. So we look at the location that's proposed, the duration, the time of the display, to have some kind of control over those professional displays.
And with respect to consumer fireworks?
So consumer fireworks don't require permits under the state. Under the state law, we can't require them. But again, we include the language giving the fire marshal the ability to suspend the use if it's considered a risk to the public safety for weather conditions or other conditions, and also limit the duration at the property to an hour's duration at any particular time. Also, there's other very specific restrictions that the statute puts in there for consumer fireworks. Needs to be individuals over 18, can't be intoxicated individuals.
That's what it is.
Right, but you have to put it in writing. We put in there that they cannot be set off on any township property, which we're allowed to do. The individuals setting forth the fireworks need to have express permission from the owner of the property on which they're being set off. So you're not going to have a situation where someone is going to be able to put off, you know, consumer fireworks in a park without being shut down for those types of activities.
Yeah, and what I would encourage, and first of all, as far as an M80, as far as I remember, I think that's a display firework. I don't believe that is considered a consumer firework, because that's basically a quarter stick of dynamite. So, what? Did you? Oh, were you?
Not that specific, but someone else does.
But if you do have concerns, and if the regulation is put in place, then what you can do is you can obviously contact if you feel that there's, familiarize yourself with the law, certainly, and if you feel there's a violation, it is something that you can contact the police about, and they can inspect the fireworks, make sure that they are in fact consumer fireworks. Or if they're display fireworks and there hasn't been a permit, if there's an issue with what's going on, if you suspect people are intoxicated and are creating an unsafe condition, certainly that is something where the police should be notified. And there will be durational requirements and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. Actually, I remember now. Yeah, I mean, I forgot you were. I knew I had recognized you before, but you were speaking here before. Yes, on this issue, right? Yeah, but so that's really the best we can do given the current state law. We can't, as Alicia said, if we put something in place that conflicts with state law, that will not survive a lawsuit if there is one. So, any specific questions from the board concerning what's been proposed?
I have notes.
Go ahead.
So on the display fireworks, the state ordinance?
Statutes.
Law.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay, the state specifies that you cannot get a permit if you're under 21, and I think we should add that to specify.
We can do that. Now, just so you know too, the state law, there are some things in the state law we didn't include because the state law, as long as it wasn't contrary to it, we didn't, because the state law governs anyway, but we can certainly add things like
We
that.
have the age for the
That's fine.
consumer, so
Okay.
I think we should add the age for the display permit as well.
Is that purchase or display or both? And if you don't know, I'm happy to look it up. I just didn't know if it was in your notes
have it right here.
I'll look it up, don't worry about it.
Okay. I thought I had it right here. Oh, a display fireworks permit may not be issued to a person under 21 years of age.
Okay.
The rest of my comments are on the consumer, because that's what I'm familiar with.
Sure.
So on item number 6, and I don't know if you wanna bring it up.
Is there a way to project that?
No, we don't. Okay, that's fine. So we say consumer fireworks are not permitted upon any township roadway, park, public space, or another township-owned property.
Right.
Is that if you do, you need a permit, or, because what if there's a display company who wants to shoot consumer fireworks and not display fireworks?
So what this would prohibit, as it's currently written, and obviously this is a draft, so this is why we're doing this, we can change, we can make whatever changes wants made. This would preclude somebody from intentionally discharging consumer fireworks on township property, which, as I recall, the state permits us to do. So what you're saying is if somebody, if we decide we want to have a display the township, then what we could do, the township has the authority to.
Do the dump center fireworks.
Right, well, the township would have the authority to, if that's the case, if the township does want the ability to bring in display fireworks, we might shoot off consumer fireworks. What I would suggest doing is insert some language to make it clear that unless, otherwise authorized by the township in writing.
The next one is on, and I just picked out ones that aren't in the state.
Yep.
In particular. The next one is item 7, about within 100 feet of any combustible material. So how do we define combustible material?
I believe that is in the state statute. And I would just need to pull it to see if they define combustible material, because for a lot of it, what it does is refer to the APA, which I know you know, American Pyrotechnics Association definition of terms, which are like 40 pages of single-spaced documents. I would need to check.
Yeah, as long as we're clear on that, because
What combustible
fireworks
is.
themselves, the
Combust.
definition is a combustible
Right.
material, so then you're saying I can't shoot fireworks within 100 feet of fireworks, which doesn't
I see your
make
point.
sense.
We'll have to make some what we can do is define the term. I'll tell you what, I'll run it by you.
Okay.
And then you can present it at the next board meeting as long as you think it makes sense.
Okay. The next one is number 8, which is consumer fireworks are prohibited in a manner such that the sparks or any proportion of the fireworks may land upon the property of another without that property owner's express permission. So I completely hear the feedback from the comments earlier. My question is, how do you enforce that? What happens if you have a single wind gust and you have a spark that lands, at the top of a tree on the edge of someone's property? How do you?
Well, it would be a policy decision for the board. I mean, it's a trespass, arguably, if somebody hasn't consented to having something come upon their property and somebody causes it. You don't have to physically enter another person's property to trespass on the property. Just like if I'm shooting off water, and water happens to make its way over to somebody's property, that's still a trespass. So the question would be, is that something the board wants to regulate, or do you not want to do that? Do you think that's too much? I mean, her point is a valid one, which is unintentionally that could happen.
I think that's one of the issues, though, the unintentional nature of fireworks. If it's done in residential areas, like that's part of the issue where, like you just said, oh, well, this could happen. Well, we know. That's why we want to regulate them.
Right, but it is also prohibited to shoot within 100 feet of an occupied structure. So if people are in the street, 150
Yeah.
feet. If people are shooting them in the street, that's already prohibited.
Right, but you referenced a spark going into a tree on someone's property.
From wind.
It could be.
But I think that's part of the issue people have. Like when it's done in a setting like, at the country club or a school or where you guys did at that time, you know, there's a lot of room, but I think when you're doing it in residential neighborhoods, that's the issue that people have that live in that neighborhood is, okay, well, if a gust of wind comes and you send something up, now it lands on my roof or in my tree or somewhere, like, that's the issue.
But I would argue that the 150 feet precludes that you shouldn't be doing it in that residential neighborhood because
Right.
you're prohibited from.
No, but your example referenced something inadvertently going into someone's tree, and then Sam referenced that being trespassing. Like, I think that needs to stay, because that's the issue. Like, if you think that could happen, then you probably shouldn't be setting fireworks off there, you know what I mean?
And my question is, how do you enforce it? Because I would say it didn't happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, in any instance, this would be enforced by the police. So, you know, if somebody felt that the fireworks, I mean, what the state statute calls for is for the police, the local municipality to enforce and investigate, and frankly, they can seize the fireworks if they think there's an issue, at least temporarily from an evidentiary standpoint, and there can be a forfeiture of the fireworks down the road, you know, with after due process, et cetera. But this is an ordinance that would be enforced by and large by the police. There are pieces of it that require the fire marshal's involvement as well, especially with display fireworks, as you know, and also with consumer fireworks. And if there is, hopefully we would never have the scenario that we're talking about, because there is something in here that allows the fire marshal to shut down any fireworks when the weather is creating a condition that makes it hazardous to go that way. Who is the fireman? Is it Officer Vance? Okay. Do you have any concerns from an enforcement standpoint?
No, again, I can see where she's talking about in regards to, my word against someone else's word. Hopefully, officers will get there and take the necessary investigative action and do what's right. But, a lot of times with the day, people are if it's creating a nuisance, they're going to be out there with their cell phone cameras or taking some sort of pictures. And I'm sure they'll bring that evidence forward to our officers when we get there. And that's something that, maybe if someone's lighting off some sort of fireworks that so there could be a breeze or bringing it over to someone's property, that's something hopefully that they can capture.
Yeah, but we are limited in how we can enforce it, because the statute does govern, how it's supposed to be enforced. But you're practically, yes, it could be there are some practical issues that could arise here, yeah.
I have 3 more.
Okay, that's fine.
So section 6C on the restrictions. So I agree with the fire marshal having, being able to shut it down for safety reasons, fire hazard reasons. I think this reads a little too broad that they could stop it for any reason. So if there's a way to make it about safety.
Yeah, what it says is, and I'll open this up to the board, what it says is the township, you're reading 6C2, right?
Yep.
The township has the discretion to suspend all use of consumer fireworks if the fire marshal deems such a suspension to be in the best interests of the township or its residents, including but not limited to circumstances of adverse or unfavorable weather conditions, such as high winds or drought. The reason why we wrote it that way was we were trying to give deference to the fire marshal, because we can't, as much as we may try, we can't come up with every scenario under the sun that could create hazard. Notwithstanding lawyers will be paid for that, but we can't come up with every hazardous condition under the sun. So we tried to give some deference or discretion to the fire marshal. But if you think that gives too much discretion, then we can certainly.
If I can comment on this, we actually already do this with the burn permits.
Okay.
So it would probably be done in tandem. We can speak with Officer Sergeant Bennett, and we just would use the same regulations he uses there.
The next one is, the next 2 are on the duration. So, one, I highly recommend in lesson learned, I learned my lesson, I think we should add something about notification if it's over a certain amount of time. We may even want to, again, lesson learned, talk about the township shall notify the residents through the alert, the code red system, if it's a certain amount of time, and I assume the permit, the time that you have to notify for a permit is 2 weeks, so I assume it should be notice, notify the township 2 weeks in advance.
The issue is, and I don't mean to interrupt you at all, but this is under the consumer fireworks section, which doesn't require a permit.
Right.
No, I'm saying we should still notify, people should still notify
Okay,
the
so
township.
you wanna put a so what you're suggesting is that we put something in here requiring the person using the consumer fireworks to notify the neighboring properties that they intend to do so.
If it's gonna go longer
If
than
it's
3
gonna be a
hours.
certain amount of time,
If it's gonna be a certain amount of time.
So if it's beyond a certain.
Beyond 1 hour.
30 minutes, an hour, whatever.
So what we put here, so I guess this is gonna be your next point, but what we put here was, we put a maximum time threshold. What we said was, the use of consumer fireworks shall not exceed a period of 1 hour of duration, measured on a cumulative basis in any given 24-hour period, with, on the property that's using it. So right now, that's the way it was drafted, but I'm guessing you're gonna tell me you don't like that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, one, I don't know how you measure or enforce it, because the actual sound that a firework makes is literally a second, if that. So how do you measure that, how do you define it? And I think that's where we get into being too strict, and I can see organizations challenging that.
Okay.
We put in, like Dave said, 1 hour, then it's beyond an hour, the rest is notification.
We could do that. It's whatever whatever you guys wanna do. I mean, this is, look, the state hasn't spoken on this issue. This is one we're trying, it seems to me from what I've read and what we've discussed, that reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions will be upheld. So the question is does this go too far? I mean, I don't think it would be unreasonable to say, for example, that having a 5-hour display, or would be, if it were constant, continuous fireworks display during the hours of whatever, would be unreasonable. But maybe 1 hour is, I don't know.
Or even limit it to like, say 10 PM, no more.
Well, it's already in
I think we should
there.
add it. What is
It's
it?
already in
I
there.
think the issue is more that it's late than it was 5 hours.
We said 11 to
It was actually both. I mean, when you have dogs that are just
Yeah.
going nuts for 3 hours, it's kind of, to me, that's unreasonable. I can see a half hour, an hour, but I thought 3 hours was unreasonable, especially the last half hour when it would go for 10 minutes and stop. And we're like, oh, they're done. And then it would start again, and the dogs are going nuts, and people have babies and, PTSD, people that lived in the area and the smoke.
Well,
I mean, if you're gonna set fireworks off for 3 hours, I think there's a lot more rural areas, especially in Exeter,
Oh, yeah, it should be
I mean,
somehow.
I think if it's more than an hour, there should be some mileage limit of how far from a residential area.
Well, the problem is, if you set off one, and say, and that, so does the time start, and then say you don't set another one off, and say you're having problems, and then it's another, say you start at 6, now it's 7:30, and now we can get it going. I guess that's what she's saying, like, are you measuring the sound by an hour, or when the time starts, when you first show up the first one, only an hour?
I think it should be from start to finish. Like when you start.
So you like your first firework?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, what if you had some issues, or something you gotta reset and rebuild or something,
The other thing is, do we go down a slippery slope of, you can't mow your lawn with a certain lawnmower for, a long duration? I'm arguing where this can go because of, we talk about sound levels, right? So this is where people can go, we run a chainsaw for 8 hours on a Saturday to cut down trees on our property. Is that now, can I say my neighbor can't do that? And bring it up, those are some other.
No, I agree. I mean, you ever be next to somebody that's power washing all day, and it's, you just want to sit down and have lunch, and they're just all day running it. It's like it's good. I mean, they had it at the gun club, which I couldn't say you had a better place to have it. You're actually at a gun club.
It was within a half mile of my house, and like I said, I had 2 small dogs, and they were just going nuts for 3
What
hours.
about the gun? They don't hear the guns? Like, what if they had a gun tournament?
What about the train? You don't know the train?
They hear. They don't.
So my
They
dog
don't,
goes
they don't
to
go
fireworks
nuts around
events
fireworks.
hours.
They don't
Loves
like
it.
with a train going by.
I know, it's fine with guns.
So really, the question is, do we want to have? We do have a restriction. It sounds like you're okay with the 11 to 11 use.
I actually questioned if that is in line with the noise ordinance, because the noise ordinance I thought was 10.
We're changing the noise ordinances, but it's not on the agenda tonight, but that's being addressed as well. Okay, all right. So the question really is, do we want to try to regulate the duration or not? Or do you want it to be more of a notice provision that says if you intend to exceed a certain period of time, you have to, give notice to your neighboring property?
Or can we do it consistent on where it is? We get that specific or not?
And then we're turning it into a zoning ordinance, which makes it a little.
And this is based on the consumer, which I think, like, when you do the professional grade, it's different, like, that's at an event.
Like Maydays, well.
Yeah, exactly, like, but when you start to open up all this extra time window, I think, for consumer, now it's like, the neighborhood fireworks show can just go on for 3 hours or 5 hours, and
You were using.
I think that's a bit extreme.
Okay, so just, they were using consumer fireworks.
Yeah. No, that's why I said I think the whole thing was based on consumer, which we're still really down.
Well, why don't I do this? Why don't I come back with, I hear what you're saying, with some suggestion, a couple different suggestions on duration, and then at the next meeting, one will be this, one will be something that requires notice, and then maybe some sort of hybrid, and I'll give you the 3 options, and you guys can tell us which one makes the most sense.
Sounds good.
And to define consumer, it says it on it. I mean,
Class C, I think, right?
It's now a number, it's 1.3 versus 1.4, and it's more about the amount.
The way it's packaged, as I understand, has been explained to me, the police can inspect it, so if there is an issue with the nature of the fireworks, and in fact, I believe Officer Benz inspected your fireworks, and confirmed they were.
But they are labeled, yes.
Right, consumer fireworks.
Right. I mean, but outside of that, is there any real testing that can be done? What if someone just packages it as consumer? We don't know.
Well, yes, there is, because there's a definition, but you'd have to do it through the normal investigative process.
And is an M80, is that considered consumer?
No, an M80 is actually an IED.
Yeah.
But
It's
you can
not
say it's a
fireworks.
baseball.
Okay, so
Not permitted use.
No, that would be contraband, that would be, they get sees that on site. Yeah. All right, good, I think we had a good discussion, and good steps for, is that it? Okay, all right, so I'll come back with revised, some revisions based upon what you said, and also a revised duration.
I know we got some suggestions from Sergeant Fence as well that were really helpful that we already incorporated.
Right.
So that was great too. Okay, well, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll be prepared to present a revised one. I think that's a good discussion for the public that's been on us about fireworks. Next, resolution approving revision of plan of record for Pathfinder Meadows Phase 2.
We submitted, excuse me, we're submitting a revision of plan of records for Pathfinder 2, Phase 2, which was a previously approved subdivision by the Board of Supervisors years ago. The applicant resubmitted plans because there were some revisions to where the creek was with relation to the sewer, so they had to clean up some of the locations of the easements and so forth. Plans were reviewed by the Planning Commission and were approved conditioned upon meeting the requirements of our January 25th, 2019 review letter. Speaking with the developer, originally they were going to go to construction this year. However, due to economic reasons, they are postponing their construction till a future time. Our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors is to put some safeguards in, having a memorandum of understanding executed by the developer and the township, as well as some applicable plan notes that will protect the township, so that when they do plan to develop Phase 2, that the appropriate improvements agreement is executed with the stormwater operation maintenance agreement executed, as well as any contribution of stormwater funds that are required per our Act 167 stormwater ordinance. We've been communicating with the Township Solicitor's Office, and this evening there is a memorandum of understanding to be executed between the Township Board as well as the developer, and including some notes on the plans that we're making a recommendation that the Township would approve the plans, the revision of plan of record for Pathfinder 2, Phase 2, subject to the execution of the memorandum of understanding and the appropriate plan signatures.
So
we were, well,
So we would want a resolution.
we would want a resolution executed tonight, and then, based on what we reviewed and coordinating with the Township Solicitor's Office, we recommend that the board would consider, entering into that memorandum of understanding, adopting a resolution.
Motion?
Make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding.
Approve the resolution.
Approve the resolution.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Next, John, discussion of 2020 recycling program.
Chair, the administration is seeking authorization to go out for proposals for the 2020 recycling program. We're recommending that, as in prior conversations, we do it weekly rather than bi-weekly. And also, we close the Trout Run Recycling Center and refer people to the Total Recycling Center, which operates a better function than we have at Trout Run. And be open to any other ideas the board may have to on this matter.
And are the bids in?
Yes. I think weekly would be fantastic.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I always forget.
Are there any changes in rates if we do it weekly but close Trout Run?
We won't do, there won't be any the change from weekly and closing Trout Run will not modify the rates. We'll modify, what we'll do when budget time is, here's the price. We'll take what we get from the recycling program, the grants we get, and subtract from that, subtract from what we get now, and see where we're gonna be. I don't think the rates will be that much, well, they'll be a little higher, but not that much.
Do we have an estimate when the total recycle on Lincoln Road will reopen for use? The consumer drop off? No, they're doing modifications. They said it's going to be closed for several months.
I'll find out.
But you can go down, you can go to the landfill. They have a drop off there as well. It's
Glenn, do you know when it's gonna be open?
I don't know, that was that discussion at our last meeting, and it's my understanding that in the next week or so, it should be back, that's why we can go in. They had some work over there, they're implementing that change orders for the plastic, and I guess that's just something.
You need a motion for,
To go weekly and close the Trout Run Recycling Center in January.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. New business, discussion on authorizing a police recruitment exam.
Let the chief have the scale. Currently, we have some vacancies in the police department. With the way the next academy class starts, if we start our recruitment process now, we hopefully will be able to get some good candidates in the next academy class, which will start January here, locally here. So in order to do that and get that process rolling, we'll need to start the recruitment process and then schedule the exam so we can get those people started in January. And we have some additional vacancies next year as well. So in order to fill those vacancies, we'll need to get that process started now.
This is the same process we did the last time to get new, and the new recruits were gonna very well from
Yes.
being told.
Yes.
Is my motion? I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next topic, discussion on videotaping board meeting.
Everyone done? How's that?
resume.
Yeah, let's have a discussion on it. Does anybody have any thoughts? I mean, I think we could videotape them with a disclaimer that if there's any foul language or anything disruptive, they don't get put to the video. A lot of townships, like Muhlenberg, Spring Township, they don't video their meetings, so it's not like it's
called
like,
crew, they don't.
yeah, so it's not like us not videotaping meetings isn't a bad thing. And the minutes are the official document of record, so, but I'm okay if you guys want to videotape them.
Where are we gonna post them and what type of
The
storage?
same as the internet. We've already passed the storage, in the previous months. We have rules as to how to store for it.
After 6 months, the old ones drop off. as the new
Okay.
ones come on.
Does this
But
have-
they're kept in archive.
Oh,
1 hour a week.
How much does that cost?
Does it add a cost to the township?
1 hour a week, someone's time. Whoever does that hour.
And
We don't
space
pay
on
for
the-
that storage.
Yeah, that's space. Space is cost.
You know, I mean, I know the biggest thing that's been coming about transparency, I mean, but we do have we have public meetings, we've been putting more stuff out on the internet, and we have the newsletter and the new website. I think it's gonna be highly updated. I mean, I think the biggest thing is more just with, it's not so much videotaping meetings, it's getting community engagement, you know? Like, if you really wanna know, come to the meetings. I mean, that's what I always used to say, if you wanna be involved, get involved. You know, I mean, cause the other thing is people wanna go back and review it afterwards, and I just feel it causes more headaches than it's worth.
And I do think, Lori, with the new website, we'll be able to tell if people are clicking. Because my view is we're gonna do videotapes, 3 people look at it, but I think the new website is gonna allow us to say who's clicking and who's, maybe, I'm just hoping. Because Dave and I are data guys, so we wanna see, is anybody looking at his videotapes?
I'll have to check on that.
I'd like to see if they're used, but I mean, I think we should go back and videotape the meetings. There are many cases where people are traveling their own vacation and they were very interested in a topic and they'd like to go back and watch that. You know, if it's not a huge investment in time and resources, 1 hour every 2 weeks or whatever it costs to upload and then maintain that site, I would prefer to go back to videotaping.
Jeff?
Yeah, my only concern was the long-term cost of storing the video, but
6 months.
if that's reasonable, I'm fine with it, for all the reasons Dave cited.
Karen?
I agree with Jeff and Dave, I have no objections.
Do we have a motion?
Michelle, John, any hardship or?
I think there is server space that's utilized with videos that is, expensive for the township, we just have to put that into our calculation.
What's the estimate on that, like a low to high range
Don't know the answer,
estimate?
I'd get that answer for you.
Yeah, if it is a lot, I think we
Yeah, I'd
should
like to know
consider
that.
We could do the 3 months.
How long we keep them, depending on what the cost is.
And if we look into long-term public cloud storage options like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud,
So yes, and then those are considerations for the new township building. Right now, the servers that we have are established and have certain criteria already set to them. We can certainly take a look if the board wants to.
yeah.
We can give you some suggestions on cost pricing.
Yeah, I'd like to see the costs before we approve it.
Refer it to the next meeting, if we get more cost estimates. I mean, I'm just asking, just so we can make it.
We can, I mean, it's not gonna hurt to start doing it now. If we find out it's expensive, you can always stop it again in the future.
Well, I think it's
Yeah,
easier
But I would
to-
like to see if people are actually, if there's only ever, one view of a video and we're spending X amount of dollars, then we can reconsider that.
Right, so heat sourcing on those, that would be an additional cost we'd have to pay an IT consultant to do, which again would be something we could do for the board, we can get a price for you. But then we would actually have to hire somebody to do the sourcing on the website.
I just think it'd be easier if we got the information before we started, because it's gonna be easier to start it than it will be to stop it. That's all I'm just saying, I'm just saying, if we wait till the next meeting just to get more prices and get just a better idea, so we know more so what we're talking about.
Or do we start recording but not posting until we have the answers on these?
Well, I think some of the ones is we wanna know what it is.
I think we could get that pretty quick, but
Yeah, the system is set up, right? I mean, we're set up to do what we were doing.
So the board is clear, there are 2 things that we're talking about. One is the website where this would be housed, and 2 would be the server, because remember, this would be a record that the township would be required to retain.
For how long?
6 months,
6 months.
so.
That's why I suggested about looking into the public cloud option,
Right.
like an
we're not-
off-site server.
Right, if we're not currently on right now.
Right,
so we
but
could do
that's
that.
an easy,
you could be in the new building.
yeah, it could be here too, it just goes over the internet. I'm sure the bandwidth is fine here for it.
So we can give you.
We'll look into it, yeah. Public cloud's very common now, and
It is.
it's like long-term storage. It's very cheap, but you can't access it frequently. So after 6 months, if we put it in there, unless we need to go back and look at it, it's very minimal cost for the server space.
So the township has just recently moved to a new IT provider, so we'll ask
Mhm.
for some information.
Okay, great.
So you guys wanna wait until the next meeting and then do our due diligence?
I'm fine now. I think what Dave said is, I mean,
Yeah, we're working, I mean, we already have the space, we're doing it now, we're doing it. I mean, if we get data and it shows, I prefer to start doing it, make a decision, and if we get data that shows it's too expensive or not worth the money, and people are not valuing it, I would take it over.
Motion?
I'll make the motion to begin recording Exeter Township Board of Supervisor meetings starting June 2nd.
I'll second.
It's not June 2nd. Oh, the second, I see the second. Right, John?
First or second meeting in June?
Louder, please.
Okay. I'll make a motion to start videotaping the Board of Supervisor meetings starting the first meeting in June of 2019.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I'm sure I'll get killed because, you know, I'm.
We do vote yet, so.
I know, but I'm not gonna vote for it because I just think we should get.
All those in
more.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
4-1, John. Next discussion on restaurant use at Reading Country Club.
Mr. Chair, this was brought up at the last meeting, put on the agenda, discussion on whether or not the board wants to have or open restaurant at the country club. There's a couple of issues. One is, as you know, the board has an RFQ out, and at some point in the next 12 to 18 months, the board to make a decision what to do with the site. You could have a different vendor there, so the short-term vendor would be at risk. That's the right word to use. Secondly is the township owns the liquor license, and past experience has shown that the township will need to serve the liquor, which means bartender, if you're gonna serve alcohol as part of a restaurant. So I'd recommend that in order to reduce some expenses and some risk, that if we're gonna go down this route, you might wanna consider having a BOB operation.
BYOB.
Bring your own goods.
BYOB, or maybe like a pop-up caterer that could operate.
And maybe reach out to some caterers to see if they would be interested in providing a service on a limited basis, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and holidays, and arrange a fee based on that type of use.
As far as serving liquor, we could also, I know there's staffing agencies like Mac Employment engaged.
Township employees.
We can't outsource,
Township employees.
even if they're LCD certified.
They have to be township.
Okay.
employees. It's a liquor license, it's a municipal golf course liquor license, it's not like an R license or anything like that. So we went through this ad nauseum for the past 2 years, and they have to be township employees, we can't outsource that at all. So,
We could, John.
Unless it was a management
John,
agreement.
there's one, yeah, exactly. The one exception is you can do a management agreement, but then you're still ultimately responsible for it. There has to be somebody from the township who's responsible for it. But you could put in place a management agreement. But that would have to go out,
And that's done.
It's not gonna happen overnight.
That's done at other properties, and that's the issue, is you only have 1 year, right?
that's the problem, yeah. I've been using, we're assuming here that whatever decision is made will be effective 1/1/21. So it could be varying one way or another next year, I don't really know.
Could be 6 months, could be 8 months.
It's gonna be a while. So that's part of the unknown, that's part of the risk. So you wanna have an operator who can come in tomorrow and be out in 3 weeks, you know what I mean? So
That's why I
risk
think,
you run.
I think the caterer, get somebody in there that's a caterer, they can work Thursday through Sunday, BYOB. It eliminates bringing in somebody that's gonna have to invest $30,000 to make a new menu, and then in 1 year, when we lease or sell, we kick them out, so. I think that in my view, if we could find a caterer, I'm fine with that.
You advertise for that? I mean, it's just a, how would that work? I mean, could you do a 2-week advertisement for ideas for a 1-year operation?
Well, I'd put it out, for a period of time, a duration, starting and end. This would be our recommended operation, provide us, a menu and fee schedule or something to that effect.
You can still call individual ones, but I think it should be, if someone comes up with a creative idea, I mean, that doesn't have to be long, but.
Right. It's a short-term run, that's what it is.
You and I spoke,
It's high risk for someone, I guess.
Want to talk about it?
And then do set it up for a year.
Yes.
Any other
Yeah,
questions?
so no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, John, the other question would be, are we talking professional service here? I mean, because if this is,
A little louder.
is this a professional service that because they're getting?
Can't hear you out here.
I'm sorry?
We're not able to hear you speaking.
Okay. Question is it a professional service? And I don't know the answer to that as I sit here right now, so I'd have to look at that. Because then if it's a professional service, if it's not a professional service, it's not something that, we have to publish.
Easier if it's a professional service.
Yes.
Because you have less, not only bidding requirements, but you gotta post a bond and have a contract. If it's a professional service, you have to have an agreement, but you don't have to post a bond, and the bond is gonna be expensive.
If to do the public bid, we can't, it's harder to go to somebody and say, hey, give us your idea, because you have to come up with bid specifications, and they have to respond to that in a closed bidding process. So, I can report back on whether it's professional service at the next meeting.
In regards to like the current, like the snack shop, the halfway house, people that, I mean, there's that canned beer, is there any way any of those could work in the restaurant and like serve tap beer or anything, or even bottled or canned?
They can do that, it's professional, but they're township, they have to be township employees,
Right.
they're talking a very limited, liquor per se.
Yeah.
Beer or wine, that'd be about it.
I still think beer and wine after a round would be better than nothing.
No, we serve that in the clubhouse now.
Right, no, but I mean over in the restaurant, if people wanna go into the restaurant, watch golf.
But it depends if the restaurateur is open during a round of golf.
Right, well, I'm just saying that the previous, you said it has to be a township employee to serve alcohol. That's what I'm saying, we're already serving alcohol in the halfway house.
Right.
So can that staff, if they're available and we use the restaurant in conjunction with the caterer, can they also serve a limited amount of alcohol in the restaurant at the bar?
Those people could probably do that, yes.
Okay, that's what, I would like to see that, just because I enjoy going there after golf, before golf, and when I don't golf to the restaurant.
But it's really difficult to find the person.
Right, no, but I'm just saying, I think the alcohol is a big factor to, you can get a caterer in there, but a lot of people when they go out to eat, they wanna get a drink or after a round of golf, or before a round of golf, so I think to have that.
Do you wanna talk about the challenges?
Yeah, I just think if we have the alcohol option available, it helps entice a caterer to come in, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You wanna talk about the challenges though, that when we
Yeah, so John and I met with Hamid, who obviously is of Exeter Dairy Queen fame and is now over at Wyomissing Family Restaurant. John and I felt that we needed to get someone that had strong emotional ties to Exeter because of the short-term situation, and obviously you're gonna invest in inventory and training, and like John said, a menu, and you might be out in, 6 to 18 months, and kind of all the things that we thought would be an issue were an issue, and I know I've asked around people that I know that own and operate bars and restaurants. I've worked in the industry on and off for years, and that's kind of everyone's concern is, well, we don't want to go in unless we know we can be in there long term, or we don't want to just go in short term unless there's a guarantee. So
The other question I had is is the building, like you say you've got somebody, is the building ready? I mean, I know that there's stuff there, but is it ready?
It can be on a short-term basis, the golf alleys do use the building on a short-term basis, and it'd be just downstairs. So it is in a usable condition. Yeah.
I didn't know if there was like other factors that need to be taken care of, so it's anybody to be in there or something.
Do we know how much we need to charge or generate to offset, any expenses to run the building?
What I would propose to do is I will talk to a few caterers between now and next meeting. We'll flesh out the liquor issue, we'll talk about the cost and see if there is one or more caterers who would be interested in that arrangement, and what would the framework be for an arrangement? Have a better conversation the next meeting.
Good.
All right.
You see the Scott director?
Yeah.
Next discussion to reduce the size of the planning commission.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead, take a minute. Right now, the planning commission is at 7 today. There's 7 active members, or?
No, that's the reason for the talk of reducing it to 5 is to have a quorum. You know, we would need 4 currently, which sometimes has been a challenge. So if we change the size to 5, the quorum would be 3, which is usually always easy to attain. Plus, the last time there was openings, there was not a lot of interest from the public to fill 1 seat. When Darren and I got on, did we get on right at the same time, or was there a little, yeah. But I think were we the only 2 or the more?
I think so.
Yeah.
Do we know, I mean, we have vacancies now, right?
There's 2 vacancies.
Yeah, and Will, I think Will's been unsuccessful with getting them filled, so it's kind of like the lack of interest and the potential lack of having a quorum has led to the thought of reduction.
It's not like we're ignoring the.
No, it's not like we're shutting anyone from the public out who wants to be a part of it, as far as I know.
We've advertised for this.
We've been advertising.
And nobody?
The law, just briefly, what the law requires is 3 to 9 members, so that's what the NPC provides. Our ordinance currently says it permits up to 7. We have 7, so if you want to change, you have to do it by ordinance. So an ordinance would need to be prepared. Obviously, it's not prepared yet, but an ordinance would need to be prepared. To go down to 5, you can't go higher than 9. You're at 7. If you want to go down to 5, we would have to draft an ordinance indicating that.
When's the last time we advertised for the openings? I mean, just number-wise, I mean, if you have 5, you still need 3 present, so.
I think it
7
was
needs 4
within the
present.
past 60 to 90 days.
If you direct us to, we can have an ordinance prepared. Wouldn't be a complicated ordinance at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm for going to 5.
When you had 7, how many, so you couldn't get 4 people to attend out of the 7 to the meetings, or?
A 20-year member, roughly 20-year member, has just recently resigned. So he was at every meeting. He was at every meeting I was at, and I've only missed 1 in the 14 months I've been on. So that was pretty much the main thing, is one of the 7 retired, I guess you would say, and he was always there.
We didn't often have 7.
No.
Yeah, I think the history shows 5.
Yeah, it was usually 5 to, 5 was definitely the average, maybe 6 once in a while.
To go to 5, with changing the ordinance.
I think volunteer. My Mondays are tough, but I'll figure it out.
Don't be not showing up now. I'll be calling you to come in. That's what we do.
Do we post something on the website one last time?
Yeah, you want to give it, if Todd volunteers and gets approved and we get somebody else, or give it till the next meeting or next month or
That's fine.
whatever.
That's what you want to do. But you better show up to every meeting.
Can you change the quorum to be 3 and have 7 members?
No.
You got a better chance of having 3.
That's why I'm gonna make it 5.
Well, no, if you only have 5, you still have a.
We gotta be majority.
You have an ordinance, you have an ordinance.
I don't have experience there. I mean, is it more valuable to have 7 than 5? The opinions, diversity, I don't know.
We've never had 7.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the more you have potential to have more views, but I don't know that always, sometimes more info is, I don't know. I don't know that there's been a long-term study on the data that I'd be interested to see it.
The only downside would be if you don't get a quorum, the planning commission is necessary, as Joe could explain much better than I can. Nothing
nothing's gonna get done from a land development.
Yeah, like we almost didn't have a quorum last meeting and we had like 3 major items.
It's actually been several times that we've marginally had a quorum. There actually, I think there was 2 meetings that we had the meeting, but it wasn't official because we only had 3.
We don't want that, yeah, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have a good planning commission, but I think with schedulings and people's work, we had a couple of members that were out of town on business. Unfortunately, it creates a little bit of a hardship.
Ms. Haver?
When I first started going to planning commission meetings, I've been going for 2 years. I'm in the audience all the time.
I see ya.
There were only 5. You took it up to 7
Mhm.
because you had a hard time getting a quorum at 5. So we took it up to 7. Now you want to go back down to 5 again. So I'm just saying you might want to stay at 7.
Give one last advertisement, and if not,
Yeah.
we're fine, okay. And we have one guy we're gonna hold accountable.
No golf on Mondays.
No golf. We're gonna table that until we get the advertisement. Next resolution authorizing execution.
Before these two have
Authorize and advertise it. How do you wanna advertise?
Newspaper.
Newspaper and website.
You need a motion?
Okay.
What's your opening?
Can we put something on Facebook too, or is that automatic?
Yeah.
Newspaper?
Yeah, all the social media for the township. Resolution authorizing execution of agreement to purchase the Promenade Shopping Center.
Mr. Chair, the solicitor has reached an agreement in the terms of the agreement of sale with the property owner of the Promenade Shopping Center. It will be appropriate for the board to authorize proper officers to execute the agreement.
As the board previously approved this, I asked for time to have one of my colleagues write the agreement before it was finalized by the board. There is a 60-day due diligence provision in there that would allow for all the necessary diligence to be done, environmental, some of the issues that were identified. And if there is a problem with the property, the board does have the right to terminate the contract with or without cause during the due diligence period.
Only 60 days?
Right, as it stands right now, unless we elect an extension because of environmental issues, yeah.
Has there been a traffic study performed?
What you're asking me.
Whoever, I mean,
I think
we go over here.
Mr. Hughes.
That intersection.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I think, well, I mean, I know we studied areas of the township before Perkiomen Avenue and the traffic in and out of that area. I think we've talked, there's currently 2 entrances and exits. We've talked to the fire department about accessibility and what their thoughts were, and they thought access was not a big issue. But, I mean, that was part of the due diligence. I guess my question to John or Michelle is like, so 60 days, I mean, are we prepared, that's enough time, we think, to look at the property?
Well, due diligence is primarily addressing the structure and the environmental issues. Traffic and things like that will be determined through the land development or development process because you don't know what's going to be there in order to generate the traffic. And we'll say that we've been talking to PennDOT about the issue of the right in, right out access. They are making the necessary improvements that if that's a full service access, that the piping will be there for traffic signals, that kind of stuff. So we won't have to do any damage. That's part of the plan we've been working on now.
Yeah, you can have like an emergency light at that one exit, that's, just like a flashing, and then if they need it, they can close it off.
That's all part of the.
Yeah, I mean, it was a giant, and the shop, it was, so I looked up the street, and, never had it, I never was like waiting to get out, So, and that was busier than what it's gonna be for the township building, I would believe.
Need a motion, folks.
I'll make a motion to authorize the execution of the agreement.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Department reports. All right.
Just about finished with the street sweeping. However,
Seems like every time we sweep, we get a storm, and it doesn't look like we swept anyway. All right, keeping at it, so, probably in the next couple of weeks, he will finish that project. We have a huge paving project coming up here in June. Keep in mind, if you've seen these signs out here, we're gonna be paving DeMoss Road from Alvy's property line into Gibraltar. We're gonna be paving, milling and paving all these projects also. 422, from 422 to Oak Parkway on Gibraltar Road, that gets paved, milled and paved. 422 coming in this way, Gibraltar, up to this middle garage out here. And also from the States Drive on Gibraltar Road down to the bridge, that will also get partially milled and all paved, all the entire road will be paved. So it's gonna be a very difficult project, that's why we're waiting for the school to be closed. But we have Flagger Force is going to be coming to do the traffic control, so hopefully that will lessen the pain, but it'll be fun. Other than that, we have mowing, we're doing the highway mowing, we're just about finished with that, township, and then we will start June 1st, the state roads getting mowed as well. That's it for now.
Chief? We had a DUI checkpoint over the holiday weekend here. I'd like to share some of the stats from the checkpoint. We made 7 DUI arrests. I had 4 additional drug arrests. One wanted subject came through the checkpoint. The officers issued in excess of 30 traffic citations. It was a good effort. We were assisted by officers from other townships as well, from Shillington, Byrne, Central Berks. We had Douglas, Muhlenberg, and from the townships there. 423 cars came through the checkpoint, and in addition to those DUI arrests, we also had 4 other arrests, DUI arrests, made throughout the weekend. So it was a very productive weekend by the police department and keeping the roads safe. In addition, we had another save using Narcan over the past 2 weeks. An unresponsive female here in the township went to the residence. Our officers were able to administer Narcan and keep that person alive till advanced EMS came on scene. So.
Can I just ask a question? So I was actually fortunate enough to actually be there, so that was really a great experience. Can you just, to answer the question, like Coomer had one of those plate readers. How much did that help identifying? Because I know like that'll read the plates if they're out of registration or possibly if it's wanted or something like that.
Absolutely. So over half the citations actually came from the plate reader. So the plate reader is usually set up in advance, and it reads the plates of course as cars pass, and if there's an expired registration, if there's insurance cancellation on the tag, we'll notify officers in advance that there's something wrong with that vehicle, of course, and so it is a benefit for them.
We don't have that, right?
Yeah. We took it out of the budget.
How much are they?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I was kind of told around 22,000, but don't quote me 100% on that. But I know they were talking about putting a pole at one time, right, at the 422. And
It can be mounted on a pole to catch traffic in and out. It can also be mounted to the back of patrol vehicles as well.
Okay.
Or in the front, right?
Or in the front, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe, because usually you have an officer, how do they normally check? They're just sitting there typing places or?
Normally they'll have to run someone's registration in the car. This does it automatically for them, alerts them if there's a violation associated with that vehicle.
It was nice, it reduces like anything, like you can't see her profile because it's reading every plate.
Yeah. I think that's where the issue becomes. It's reading every plate becomes the issue.
You're in the public. Then we can meeting. Same thing.
You ready?
Transparency.
continuing to attend the PennDOT progress meetings for Perkiomen Avenue. We have an upcoming meeting a week from today. We have been expressing our concerns with traffic control as it affects the residents along, I would say, the north side of Perkiomen Avenue, which currently the contractor is working on doing utility work. So there's been some delays and inconveniences with driveway access and so forth. So for the most part, they've been listening to us, and we're just trying to keep everybody informed of the progress. However, the construction has been proceeding quite well. Hopefully the weather will hold up much better than it has been the last couple of days, and things can be moving much quicker than we hope to. So this project can finally come to an end. But
The Trout Run Bridge.
I have not heard anything back for Norfolk Southern. I would assume we're gonna hear something from the PUC probably in June when it expires. I believe it's June 30th. At this point, we have not heard anything back from Norfolk Southern on the status of any of the work.
What happens if or when that expires?
We'll have an opportunity to file a grievance, I believe is what they call it, against Norfolk Southern, because now they're in violation of their, I'm trying to think of the word they use,
Yeah, no, there's.
directive or yeah, I think it's a type of directive that the PUC gives Norfolk Southern. They must be in compliance by the end of June 30th. However, given the fact that we're at the end of May, the likelihood of that happening is very slim to none. So I'll reach out to the PUC once again and find out what's our next step, or if they're gonna be notifying us. And I'll coordinate with Sam's office. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like anything's being done.
Yeah, and can we prepare that in advance so we're ready?
That's what I'm gonna determine for the PUC, whether or not we can start proceeding with our case and our concerns in advance of that June 30th deadline date.
Well, they've already seen, there's really no case even for them they've already conceded their responsibility as part of what was filed, so their question will be, I'm assuming they're gonna file something. I don't think they're just gonna let the deadline come and go, so I'm assuming we're gonna see something within the next couple of weeks, but if we need to, we'll file something seeking to enforce the directive.
So you know, like if they got back to work, how much time it would take? I think you had mentioned this previously.
I would assume they would probably hire their own contractors, so they're not regulated under the public bidding procurement. However, I think we were originally estimating, I believe, close to 90 days, at least 3 months. It's not a complicated project, however, with the culvert and the storm sewer installation and the relocation of Painted Sky Road, that would probably consume most of the construction time and the lowering of the road underneath the bridge overpass. But other than that, scope is not too complex. It's gonna be a question of getting somebody in there and having ideal weather conditions so that the work can be taking place. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Mr. Cortez?
We had an executive session before the meeting tonight where we discussed personnel, litigation over a business privilege tax involving Birdsboro Kosher Farms, and the PUC matter concerning Lower Alsace Township, which we previously discussed. And concerning that matter, I'd asked the board to authorize me to finalize a settlement of that matter. And just briefly, we've discussed this before in public, but what it is in 2014, when the municipal authority, which previously owned and operated the wastewater treatment facility, was dissolved, that at that time the township did not obtain a certificate of public convenience, which is just the fancy term the PUC uses for, in essence, getting approval from the PUC. The township provides service directly to 29 residents in Lower Alsace Township. When you provide, a township can provide, any municipality can provide service, wastewater service to its own residents. That's within its boundaries, that's not regulated by the PUC. However, when you go outside the township boundary, you arguably become subject to the PUC regulations. So the PUC has, the advocate divisions of the PUC have made claims against the township associated with its service to those 29 lower houses residents since 2014. They were threatening to seek penalties and other sorts of relief that they'd be entitled to. However, they are willing to resolve it if we issue a refund of the amounts associated that we have received through the what they term unauthorized utility service. If we were to litigate this issue, it would be more expensive given the amount that's at issue, because it would be a complicated litigation. In my opinion, that would involve a lengthy time period, and it also would potentially jeopardize the sale of the facility itself. So the refund amount, when you do the calculation, and I've worked with the staff to come up with this, confirmed it with the advocates, is $61,871. And so I would ask the board to authorize me to finalize a settlement in that amount with in essence, the PUC. That settlement will still have to be approved by the commission. Any questions?
Just to make a statement that you said there might be an option to get a contingent attorney to try and recoup some of that, so it's,
I don't know.
Still have a chance for that.
I was asked to make a few calls, and that we may be able to get someone retained on a contingency basis to pursue those amounts, given the way the issue arose. Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Granger, any report from you?
Just to finish, I will, to Supervisor Anderson's point, I will report back on your question there at the next meeting in terms of.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Granger.
Yes, in response to a number of the business owners and residents' concerns on PROMENADE project, the main issue is one of communication between the contractor and the property owner, and there doesn't seem to be a way to fix that. So what we've done is assign a township employee to be almost like an ombudsman between the parties, primarily to ascertain when the contractor is going to be working in what area, at what day, so that we can contact the business and the property owner saying, the contractor's going to be here tomorrow. If you need something done tomorrow and he's going to block your driveway, you better do it today, so that the contractor doesn't show up unannounced and just tend to do something. Hopefully, this will work. They didn't work in the area today; they were someplace else. So we'll, have some experience, I would think, by the next meeting. As this protracted thing goes down, maybe we can help the property owners a little bit.
So this is proactive.
I think it's a great idea. Talk to them and just.
We sent letters to all the property owners, telling them this is going to happen. We gave them the employee's name and a phone number to call directly. And if they have an issue, to call him, and he can run it down, and he'll get back to them.
Okay.
That's the theory.
My only concern is with the business owners. I've had several reach out to me, and one of them is my wife, but she has clients that come every 2 weeks, and a day's notice sometimes not going to be enough. I know it's tough, but it's like they got to know a little bit ahead.
Well, again, I use that as an example.
Right.
If there's more information we can get out of the contractor, the better it's going to be. And sometimes it may only be a day, but it may be 2 or 3 days, and we can provide that information to the property owners. It's getting the information has been the problem. So whatever we can get, we pass along to the property owners.
That's it. Thanks, John. Public comment, Dave Hughes.
David Hughes, 255 West 47th Street. Just about 2 things I'd like to talk about. One is,
Raise the mic.
thank you, Jeff, for getting the video recording of the meetings back. It's a big cause for our community. But I also want to comment that we are posting, I guess they're recording this meeting now, and the private citizen, posting them on YouTube. If you haven't, if you're here and you haven't known that, it's go to YouTube, do a search for Exeter Township Supervisors, and those videos will come up. What's different with the township's videos will be that they'll be extracting short clips that are related to certain interests that might be in the 1.5 hour meeting, so you don't have to watch the whole meeting, with some commentary perhaps. And in the future, there'll be roundtable discussions, talking about topics that obviously we're not allowed to talk about here in the meeting. So if you're interested in participating in those roundtable discussions, give me your name and personal information to contact you, and you can participate. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which has already been approved by the Promenade, I am concerned about a few things. Who is behind the LLC that we're buying this promenade from? We had a former supervisor who was involved in a national real estate syndication, and I'm concerned that there might be possible conflicts of interest with the owners of the LLC that we're buying the promenade from. The traffic study was done. Was it done with the resources that we plan on concentrating up there? I don't think we're sure what that is. Is it the fire departments, the police, the community center, administration, ambulance? I'm just wondering if all of a sudden we had a big emergency and it would be a Keystone Cops up there with the difficulty getting in or out. And then to combine that with commercial properties, it sounds a little dangerous to me. And finally, having 38 years of experience in finance, the first thing my mind goes to is, what is the cost to renovate, reconfigure this property? You know, I think we should have an idea what that's going to be so we know what we're in for. And I don't think you guys have any idea what it's going to cost. Not one idea. But these are things that you should consider, and you should provide us with those answers.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Supervisor reports. Jeff. Pat, what do you need to talk about?
Oh, I just have a couple questions. One.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay.
Well, you have to really
Okay.
limit.
Yes,
You spoke already, Ms. Sturgeon.
All right, I asked you if I can speak.
Yeah, you
Okay.
did.
Let's her, go ahead.
Okay, very quickly, Michelle, if you could include, that there were, and I went to mention this and I forgot, 68.5 hours between volunteer time.
Awesome.
That's, I wanted to make that, added, because that's incredible. Also, we said something about the recycling containers, that we might be getting some new ones. Do we have an idea as to when that might happen?
We have?
They are here.
They're here, okay. Is there, does someone from the country club have to come and get them, or will they be dropped off because they can use some more?
I'm sorry, like for use at the actual country club?
We're talking
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
personal use. That's what that was talking about.
No,
I'm sorry, so for clarification, I was talking about residential recycling
Oh,
containers,
okay.
so I apologize, I
Okay.
misunderstood what you were saying.
All right.
So those are what are present now in the building.
Okay.
You need a recycling container for over at the country club that we use with the municipal contract.
An extra one would,
Sure, we'll talk.
okay.
That's no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And, a question, getting, Mr. Granger was talking about contacting, some possible caterers about going into, is that going to affect, or if it is going to affect, how will it affect the, RFQ and people going in? It won't.
We'll cut that, yeah.
No.
Two separate
And-
things.
Okay, and the caterers, would they have use of the kitchen then, or is it, do they have to bring in their own stuff like they're doing now?
That's really to be determined.
That'll depend on each caterer.
Some may want to use the kitchen, some may want to bring their own stuff, so that's TBD.
Okay, and if they are interested in doing this, what's the procedure to contact, call you? Okay.
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks for all your hard work. I really appreciate it.
I have a question
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of plants that you are looking for, or is it free?
We'll use what we can as long as it's not over aggressive. And there's so many different kinds of spots, atmospheres, light, shade, everything that, yeah, call, let us know, because we don't have a budget. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Scripture, what were you going to say?
Michelle Kurtz for 1101 Stonehenge Drive. I would like to talk quickly about the fireworks. I live in Farming Ridge. You come to my house, look at my screens from bottle rockets, fire, and I couldn't catch who it was. I'm inside my house, I'm out the next day and see my screens.
On your roof, too?
Pardon?
On your roof, there were?
No, on my screens,
gotcha.
my windows. So, I believe in the developments that there shouldn't be any type of fireworks. We had talked about panhandling before, there was nothing brought up about it. I know it's private property, but something has to be done. Somebody's gonna get hurt.
We're working on an ordinance right now.
Recycling, Mr. Granger, I had asked you about a report for the wastewater treatment plant. He said it would be up on the website, I didn't see it. Also, the recycling.
That was the monthly sewer report?
Yes.
Yes.
Also recycling, you never know what's gonna happen with recycling. 22 years on the Berks County Solid Waste Authority to deal with recycling. You really should not commit to anything until you know the price. I don't like all this jumping and committing to stuff without knowing the price for the taxpayers. A question about, just a concern about the Reading Country Club. One bar that was built in the back is not in compliance. The bar is too close to the wall, so you want to check into that. No it's not ADA, no one can fit by, not fire, anything. And for recommendation for filling boards, you should probably have a list on your website saying anyone interested in any of the boards to please send a resume in, so you have an ongoing list to fill.
Excellent, thank you. Supervisor reports, Darren.
Vinny and I went to the announcement presentation by the Restoring Hope Foundation last week. The Restoring Hope Foundation is going to do kind of an extreme home makeover of an Exeter Township family, and so we were there when they were notified. It was really inspiring, great to have that opportunity and for an Exeter family to benefit from that.
Excellent. Vinny?
I just like to know quick one comment about
Oh, go ahead.
You don't want to do it?
Yeah, go up to the podium, so it's on record.
Keith Fritz, 40 Stephanie Road. Today I had a kind of a free day, and I got in my car and drove over to Reading Country Club, and I played 9 holes of golf. And I want to tell you something. I don't know how we got there with this property, because this place is a gem. There are so many people around this. Little Rock, I don't know where Little Rock is. You might.
Little Rock.
That's
Rock.
right.
So it's
No, Little Rock is community owned. Easton has a community owned golf club. They're all doing well. And now we're going to get another Reading Country Club. Now we're going to go into the retail leasing business. What makes you think you're going to be any good at that when you couldn't handle a country club that had
But we don't know.
Customers.
We don't know though. We don't. That's part of the.
That's a problem.
No, part of the process is we're gonna get our cues back and then discuss with the public.
But that's a problem.
We haven't made any decision on anything.
Well, you just passed a,
No,
Tonight.
that was a short-term restaurant. That wasn't anything to do with the golf course.
no, I'm
I
talking
think he's
about,
talking about the promenade.
right.
Oh, promenade, yes.
I mean, you know,
I just had.
last time I was here, I heard Mr. Granger said, the problem is we shouldn't be in the golf business. Now, we're all saying we should be in a retail leasing business by buying a shopping center.
But you know, we're moving the fire department.
Yeah, I know all that. I know.
They need the room.
I know. We bought the Reading Country Club to stop the growth, to stop the continuous building of schools. We had a purpose to do that. Now, the purpose is to get rid of Reading Country Club, embrace the possibility of turning it into a tract with housing on again.
No, there's no, again, I have to keep on. there's
Yeah, I
no
know, I know.
on this board.
But the point is, it's like a juggling. When you sit here and you listen to this, it's almost kind of like Sunday comics. It really is.
Well, and I think we have a solid plan, and again, a lot of the things that we're doing are mistakes from the past.
But when we look at things, you know, here we're going to pick up recycling every week.
That's what the people want. We're listening to the people. Everybody wants that.
It's got to double the cost to the taxpayer.
No, it's not what Mr. Granger said.
I don't see how that can be. You're going to have more trucks on the street, more man hours that these recycling companies are going to have to account for.
They're going to collect more recycling because a lot of people just throw the recycling in the trash now.
I think we're really going to do that. But anyway.
All right, any other points? We got to.
Yeah, Reading Country Club. There are townships that are doing it and are very, very, very successful. Little Rock, not over here.
Not Little Rock.
Little Rock is a wonderful place, a wonderful golf course, and it's thriving.
Not in Berks County, though. Next, Vinny.
You don't advertise either.
Right, Joe. Go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, just to piggyback on Darren, we went to that Restoring Hope, which it was very nice, very emotional. I've been lucky enough to be fortunate to be part of that for the last 2 years to be an electrician. So this will be my third year helping out. So it's really great that it's in the township. And thanks to Clarence for picking up signs that were blown over with the storms, and also I saw that the like All Abilities Fitness got their signs. They didn't have signs that were directing into theirs. And the DOI stop was just an awesome experience. I kept telling my wife, I wish you were here because she would have loved it. But I think the plate reader was very helpful and instrumental. I mean, it definitely, I think it's something we should definitely look at for the next year.
Budget time, yeah.
Definitely too.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Because especially I think for even the safety of the officer not having typing, but I think that's it.
Excellent, thanks. Jeff?
I'm working on a golf outing at the Reading Country Club for the fire department as a fundraiser. We have a tentative date for Saturday, October 5th. So, trying to help out the fire department, get some fundraisers going, and we thought that would be a good one. So Derek is gonna be working on the contract, and then once it's totally official with rates and everything, we're gonna circulate that, and I'm gonna try to help those guys get like T-signs, and if we can get other sponsorships as well. So Saturday, October 5th, if you can pencil that in.
Thank you, Jeff. Please.
Yeah, didn't have much to say, but maybe a couple of public comments about the Reading Country Club and the Promenade Center. I'd just like to maybe comment on. I think a lot of people agree that it's a gem of a property. We've struggled to operate that. We've gone through management agreements, we've leased out the clubhouse, we had management companies. It was a learning process, I'd say, over the last 14 years. I agree that some other municipal courses are doing well, and there's some characteristics of them that I think we are learning, that the operations on the property have to be managed under one umbrella, so there's a synergy. The thing municipal courses have in common is your matching price with quality, what you can afford, managing the budgets. I think it's still a learning process, but I think as the monthly reports have shown, we're doing better. We have to get the clubhouse operational, we'll figure out a way to do that. So we're moving forward. So I guess that's one comment, that has been a learning curve. You know, the comments related to the promenade, in my mind, I think I've said this at a few meetings before, back when we approved to prepare this agreement. You know, if you look down 3, 5, 10 years from now, our police department is bulging at the seams. You know, it's difficult to get accreditation. If you saw the facilities in there that they're working under, in closets and in rooms, and double lunch rooms with fingerprinting, and it's just, it can't go on forever. Fire departments, similar condition. You know, I'm a big fan of synergies and having people located at the same property. Sometimes if you have buildings across, fire department here, police department here, admin over here, you just by nature don't talk together. So you would need renovations at this property. My feeling is, you know, looking at the numbers, you know, you have the cost to buy the Promenade Center is one thing. This property is very valuable here in this area. Medical complexes, there's a lot of things that can go on this property. We're out of space here. We can't do what we need to do the next 3, 5, 10 years, in my opinion, on this property. It's 7 acres, or 6.75, 17.5 acres up there. We have estimates or ballpark figures of, you know, just like a trout run master plan or something, what this is gonna cost over time. But there's no easy way to fix all these problems. But I would just say that there is a plan, and you know, I'm in favor of that. Obviously, I voted for that tonight. So, yeah, if you'd like to have further discussion on that, I'd be happy to do it. You know, it is not perfect, but you know, this site is not the place to invest in. You know, fixing up that, what we're doing with Perkiomen, and 10 years from now, having a complex up there makes sense to me.
I'd just like to build on what Dave said. He reminded me of something. When I got appointed almost 2 months ago, I toured the Rifton Fire Company and the Stonersville Fire Company, and they are both severely behind, you know, the rankings, if you will, as far as having facilities, live-in quarters specifically, to recruit students who want to major in fire science. Surrounding counties have tremendous programs, specifically Dauphin County. They have a couple schools that have fire science degrees available. There's no school in Berks County that has that. Bucks County has a really good program from what I've seen and been told, and some research I've done. And I think if we can get our fire department with some better living quarters, they're going to be able to recruit, you know, more high school students that want to major in a fire science program and live, you know, in the new fire company, which is going to obviously do a lot for our community. I know I have really taken, you know, I don't think of the fire department, you know, you see a report the next day on Facebook, and you don't even know anything about it. If I wouldn't see that, I wouldn't even know what they do. I mean, I think they had 1,400 calls they responded to in 2018. So they had 4 families of students that came to visit their site, and they were all from Lancaster, and this is like, you know, a mom and a dad go with their child to visit a college, and they didn't sign any of them. They all went to other schools, and they all cited the lack of living facilities. I mean, Rifton currently has one room, one big room, and it's not even that big, but it's just one room with 5 bunk beds, and then 2 half walls with single beds on each side of them. So theoretically, there would be 12 people sleeping in the exact same room. To go to the bathroom, you have to get up in the middle of the night, either get out of your bunk bed or get out of one of the 2 single beds, walk out of the room, walk down the stairs, literally walk past all the fire trucks, you know, a concrete floor and use the restroom and then go back upstairs. So, you know, my son's in 10th grade, you know, if we go on a visit, whatever he chooses to do, obviously you're gonna look at the living conditions, and, you know, sleeping in like, you know, that type of environment is probably not the best recruiting method our fire department has. So I just wanted to include that as well.
Thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to thank Clarence. I know you were in the parade on Monday with the train thingy. And police department, police department and fire department also represented the township well. I'm usually in this parade with my soccer club. I missed it this year, but I just want to thank both police, fire, and Clarence and his team, and whoever else was involved with that to show the great community spirit that was on Monday's Memorial Day parade. So I want to thank everyone for being involved and whoever was at the parade, obviously. That's all I had. Motion to adjourn.
I'll take 2 minutes and just peek in at the boxes the kids made. It's really cute. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, everyone.